Hi, I'm Taylor Leong. I go by Tomato Bird online as an artist, and I am based in San Francisco at the moment. I've been drawing just the general act of it ever since I can remember. We come from a very creative family, so we always had a lot of like encouragement and fun art supplies. In middle school and high school, I went to sort of art-centric schools, so I learned a lot of my traditional technical skills from there, where we did a lot of still lives, some oil painting, things like that that kind of form like foundational work. I also did a lot of practice on my own and have a lot of books and pursued different interests that have helped in the skills I have now. Other educational background, I went to UCLA and I have a degree in fine arts and minor in history there. That was a very different experience because at UCLA it was more fine art, so it was more about conceptual and modern work. So I didn't really learn a lot of technical skills there. That's kind of a period where I started working more on my own projects independently, zines and comics and posting things online. I mostly did that all by myself at that time. I still think school was valuable because it taught me a lot about like the importance of context in work and thinking about where do you want to put things, who do you want to see them, and also just sort of how to write and read, dense texts a lot. That's helped me a lot when I do research for my work and when I'm interested in looking up subjects. Why do I draw? I feel like another thing that came up when I was in college was we were talking about different processes of making art, and I guess one of the TAs told me, like, seems like you really like to make art because it's like eating and breathing for you. And I'm like, yeah, it kind of is. Like, I just really love the process of drawing. I like making lines, I like making marks, whether on paper or digital. Like, even aside from just the art making part itself, I love the motion of it. So I feel like I always will be drawing. Drawing is just the way that I think, the way that I process the world. It's connected to like creative projects and ideas I have, but I think the process of drawing is something I will always do and I won't be able to stop. It's a way to get the pictures out of my head. Like, because if I don't let the pictures out of my head, it's going to get clogged up and you don't want it to get stuck up in there. Kind of art I usually make, I make illustrations and I also make comics. I really like making comics because with comics you're able to sort of tell a story. There are different ways of doing that. You can tell like a traditional story with characters and things, or you could tell kind of a story with more series of images or have something that looks interesting and a little abstract, which I do with some of my angel related works, is that it's not necessarily focused on a character per se as much as it is on having an interesting visual thing with it, because you're still working in a 2D and a still space. There's no actual time, there's no actual like space, but you can kind of create that illusion through making different panels and different constructions. It's a very simple medium, but you can do a lot of complex things in it, and I really enjoyed doing that a lot. It's very difficult, but it's a fun challenge that tickles my brain in a way that I don't know, I just really like it for myself. I also make illustrations, which are a different beast than comics. That's more if you're wanting to communicate things in a single image rather than a sequence of images. And that's a challenge on its own because you want to always be thinking about how can I make this image stronger? How can I compose the elements so that when someone looks at it who isn't me, who isn't inside my head, do they still get an effect from it? Can they still pick up what I'm putting down in a way? Like and maybe they bring something new to the table. It's just something that feels very powerful to me, and I always feel very happy when I'm able to accomplish that. Visual themes, I tend to focus on things related to like biblical stories or mythological stories. That's something that I'm more well known for in my work that's online. I like the idea of there being things that are a little bit unknown or a little mysterious. I love there being a little mystery in stories or illustrations I make. I like the idea of hermeticism or esotericism a little bit, where things are mysterious, there's elements that are hidden, but it makes people curious to kind of know what they are. Like a lot of my illustration works, I like having very patterned borders, very detailed works that have a lot of symbolism in them, and I kind of treat it almost as a little like I spy in a way. Like I want people to look at it for a long time and notice all these little details and put it together in their heads. Like what do these aspects mean? Is it just to make it look like elegant or pretty, or is it because I want to sneak other bits of story into those elements as well? Like I want to make something that makes people curious. I feel that's what I hope comes across in my artwork, is something that's a little alien but also familiar enough to make people want to look at it more and want to connect with it more. Yeah, when it comes to selling, it's very interesting. My main thing I have in my store right now, and just for a while, are zines. So my independently made booklets. Most of my comics are things that are pretty free to read online. I put most of my work up for free on my blog, but I know that I sometimes like the option of owning a physical copy of things that I like, and a lot of people I know do as well. So I've sold a lot of copies of my comics, both online and in person at fairs and art shows. I also sell some art prints. I used to sell like keychains, like designed sort of plastic keychains. I've also sold stickers. I'm not really a sticker user myself as much, but I think it's kind of a neat challenge to make like a contained design that people can like and find interesting enough to put on their items. I do a lot of, or I used to do a lot of commissions, like personal commissions for people. It was actually some pretty good experience. They're really nice because I've had lots of really great customer experiences. Most of my designs are tattoos, so people will hire me to design something usually based in the style of my other works, so usually angels or something a little abstract or creature related. Ultimately, it's up to the tattoo artist to make it look good on their skin. But a lot of people trust me with that, and they've paid me for it for the past like 3 to 4 years. I feel like I have a really lovely audience that understands me and my work a lot. I feel when it comes to artwork, I like seeing things that when you read them or watch them, it really feels like you're seeing a part of the artists themselves in it. Like it feels like you can see their hand in it, or their vision, or their delusions, basically. Like that's exciting to me because it feels like, oh, I'm privileged to see this person's vision of what they want to make. And so for that reason, like a lot of my favorite works have, especially in comics, have been like web comics or independent projects by people that can be oftentimes a little rough. They're not always like the most professional looking, but there's always something very unique and very strong about it. Like these people would not be making these works unless they had a passion for it, because there's really no money in that. In there's a little bit, but it's a really hard road. So the people who make these independent works are doing it for the passion, and they have like a specific vision, and I'm always like, I want to see what that vision is. I want to know like what is going on in there. And I also just, on a basic level, I like things that are very beautiful and very grand, like just like art historically, like things that are very patterned or elaborate. I love that have a lot of like craftsmanship to it. Like I just really like looking at that. That's very generic because it can apply to a lot of things, but even just going to the museum or to a textile thing, and you'll see a lot of examples of that work, and I like doing studies of that and incorporating patterns in my own work when I can. It's kind of the opposite end of work that I like. That's what I just said. It's works that is very expressive and almost crude and simple. That's on one end of the spectrum. On the other end is stuff that is like high craft, like high intensity. The tension between them is I guess that's where I am, somewhere in between. Like I don't think I'm the most skilled to do super detailed work that's that can like blow people away just because it's very detailed, like the works of like Kaoru Mori, who's a manga artist who does historical work, and she always does like intense patterns and clothing. But I'm also not like as raw as some people's works where it's just so expressive but very loose that it's very revealing. I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I'm fascinated by those two ends of the spectrum, I think, in my own work. Mm, I think my biggest inspiration lately have been mostly from like real life, as in like thinking about, myself, my life experiences, my very ordinary, relationships, just feeling my own feelings and working from there. I feel has been more interesting actually. It's been kind of fun to explore that and incorporate that into my own works, or maybe I'm not intentionally incorporating it into my works, but then I look back and I'm like, oh, that was very me. That was very something that of course feels natural to me. And I get a lot of inspiration from my friends and fellow artists and creative peers as well, because just as I like trying to make things that come from myself, I love seeing their works and seeing how it comes from them and how it reflects their life, their experiences, sort of their worldview, and how that comes through in their art, consciously or subconsciously. And it's just encouraging to be around them and see our works all together, and we can see what we have that's important to us. And it's cheesy to say, but everyone is unique, and there's a lot of cliches, of course, in art and life and work, but if you can do something that's kind of comes from you, even if it's similar, it'll be unique. And I feel like I've come to value that a lot more. Art is not my main career. It's not my main goal at this point. I'm actually currently enrolled in a program for radiologic technology that hopefully I'll be able to finish on time and continue with. So that's sort of been what I've been focused on externally for the past few years, is trying to study up and get into this program and learn more about, radiation, X-rays, things like that. It's very different, but I don't see it necessarily as contradictory to my art at all. It's just more another part of my life that I have going on. I don't think I'll ever stop drawing. I hope nothing happens to make that a reality. I just love drawing. It's how I get all my thoughts and feelings out. It's how I sort of process stuff since forever. I'll probably keep drawing. What I draw or what the subjects will be will always change, but that will probably be consistent.